Hello and welcome to another D&D Stories. I am your host, TheWriter. This is a show where I sit here and regale you with all the tabletop gaming stories and remember when something cool happened. So here we are at the conclusion of the mountain. The 5 relics, the staff, the hammer, the crown, the tablet, and the gem are all accounted for, whether in good hands or evil hands. And Arntor, our dwarven cleric of Sylvanas, has decided that he will pay the price to unlock the power of the Tablet of Secrets. Now, what was that price? Well, we'll get into that. But Arntor asked the tablet the very particular question, what can be done to save Anvil from the custodians? Now, as I said before, the tablet had a lot to say, because if you ask it a complicated question or give it a complicated problem, it will tell you a lot of different things, and you can sort of select your scenario, but among which, it basically told our heroes to do nothing, because Lord Jacob Minor, current wearer of the crown, Sauric's authority, was in Anvil to seek and destroy the custodians. Now, why is that? Because both the custodians and Lord Minor worship Tiamat, the goddess of evil dragons. I think I had a slip of the tongue last episode and said that he worships Bahamut, which is not true. He worships Tiamat. Sorry for that. But, Lord Minor and the custodians both worship Tiamat, the god of evil dragons. And Lord Minor has heard of what they are doing in Anvil and is here on a seek and destroy mission. Because, and the tablet tells Arntor all of this, I basically pulled back the curtain and said, Arntor, this is exactly what's going on. And I typed up like 4 pages of stuff to give to him, because the price of the tablet is high, and you shouldn't just get a short paragraph answer for what you're giving up to this tablet, whatever it chooses to do. Basically said, Lord Minor's here to destroy the custodians because he does not believe they are worshiping Tiamat properly. Now, this kind of goes into my philosophy of death, or my philosophy of Tiamat, which is not canon in any book, in any scripture of D&D or any other tabletop game anywhere. But this was kind of the head canon that I made up, that Tiamat, as you may or may not know, is like a 5 or 6 headed like Hydra dragon, and each of her long necks ends in a different colored head. So there's a head that's a red dragon, a head that's a blue dragon, white, green, black. I think that's all of them. Black, white, red, green, blue. The chromatics, the main 5 evil colors of dragons, and there's other breeds and half-breeds and crystal breeds, etc., etc. But those are the main 5, and Tiamat is usually represented as having 5 heads, 1 of each of the main chromatic evil dragons. And in my head canon, each one represented a different kind of death. Let's see, I think white was natural death, red was a violent death, green was death by illness, black was, I think, death by suicide, and I think blue was, I don't remember what blue was, but I picked like 5 different kinds of death and named each head off that way. Among which is the philosophy that death is patient, because death comes to everyone. So if Tiamat was a goddess of evil dragons, a goddess of death, a goddess of dark magic, etc., etc., that she would be nothing if not patient, because everything in the world dies. Daddy, everyone dies. And points to you if you get the movie reference. But everyone dies, and if you're bad and you go to, the bad place in your religion, whatever it happens to be, Tiamat would be there waiting for you, whether to eat your soul or torture you or whatever it happened to be. But the idea that death is patient is part of what drove Jacob Minor to Anvil, because if you're actively killing people in the name of your god, I think that only serves the red head of Tiamat, the death by violence or the death by murder or battle or whatever it happened to be. I wish I had written this down. It's kind of a neat philosophy. But he didn't like the custodians because they prescribed to a very draconian way of just freaking murdering people in mass. But at the same time, they were only worshipping one of Tiamat's 5 heads. So ultimately, he's heard from his god. He is an anti-paladin who worships Tiamat. And she gives him quests and gives him powers, among which is to read the minds of mortal men. But you already know that. So it may have been Tiamat herself that said, "Go forth, this cult is doing wrong by me. It is only, actively worshiping 20% of my greatness, and that is not good enough. Go take them out, and they will come to the underworld to me, where I will decide what to do with them," etc., etc. So when Lord Minor receives this quest, he sets his make 100 or 1,000 paladins fall quest and puts it aside, and this becomes the new mainline quest for him, is to go to Anvil and wreck these people. So he gathers 50, 60, 80 guys, gathers up medical supplies, and on the guise of delivering medical supplies and war profiteering, he's here to start a fight. So Arntor learns all about this, that this is what's actually going on. Milo Beetlebeard is ready to put the custodians on the chopping block, even though he's the one that leads them. They've served their purpose. Lord Minor is here to destroy them, which is awfully convenient, but that's just kind of how the threads tie together. The fact that he has the crown is going to make it very easy for him to find their secret lair, or culty pit, or whatever it happens to be, wherever it is that they're keeping this sphere of annihilation, the Eye of Tiamat. And the tablet, of course, tells Arntor where this secret place can be found, but it also kind of says, based on this problem, things are about to turn bad in Anvil. The custodians and Milo Beetlebeard are getting ready to fight, or getting ready to be set upon by Lord Jacob Minor. And at the same time, the army of 250,000 dwarves, they're coming in 2 days. So you remember I told you there were between 31 and 45 days? I rolled the dice. I rolled, 2d8s or 2d10s to see. It'd be okay, 30 days plus... And then I rolled the dice to see how many more days. I rolled 2 1s. So they were going to arrive on day 32, and we are sitting at day 29, day 30, right up on the cusp. And according to the Tablet of Secrets, Jacob Minor and the custodians will have their battle the day before the army arrives. So Anvil may very well be burning when they arrive home. And yes, there are only 80 guys on one side, and the custodians only account for 30 guys. They're a relatively small group, but they do wield spheres of annihilation, and they have been spreading the disease known as heart rot, and they have been taking out people en masse. So a lot of bad shit's about to go down when all 3 of these factions are present at the same time, and will probably shred each other while Anvil comes apart around them. So Lord Minor, his dragon, his guys, Milo Beetlebeard and the custodians, and 250,000 some odd battle-weary dwarves, all in one place, all at the same time, all fighting each other. Shit's about to go down, and Arntor emerges from the sphere of light that has imbued him with all this knowledge. And he steps out and he's buck naked. All of his items, all of his gold, all of his everything is gone. So his giant dwarven dork is hanging out between his legs, and he's just hairy from head to foot because he's a dwarf. And he's just kind of standing there. They're in, again, the Sistine Chapel style great room in the fortress. They decided to kind of hang out there. And he stands there, and his friends are staring at him like, what did you learn? Oh, it took all your worldly possessions, Arntor. It's a good thing he set the hammer aside, the hammer of Morden, because the relics of Anvil are not indestructible. So he's there. He's holding the tablet in one hand, and he picks up his hammer with the other hand, and he's like, "We need to sit and talk about this." So they give him some pants. Obviously, they all had changes of clothes, but they give him some pants and some extra shoes. And Droko, who is a blacksmith, an armorsmith, is already like measuring him out for a new set of armor. And he owns a business in Anvil with his family, so he's probably got something Arntor's size in a crate somewhere. But they sit down in like the war table room that has all the dwarven miniatures in it, and Arntor like rearranges things. He puts like, this is Lord Jacob Minor and all of his guys, and this is the dwarven army, 250,000 strong, and these are the custodians. This is where they are. They've got the layout of the city in front of them. This is where they are, and they set another like a black wooden dwarf with red beady eyes on it, and they go, okay, this is what's going to happen. And then he mushes all the figures together, and they go clattering across the table. He's like, this is what's going to happen, basically. Jacob Minor, and he tells them all the things that I just told you. Jacob Minor is here to destroy the custodians. The custodians are here to destroy a large chunk of the army, and the army is going to rip Anvil apart because we're not ready, and 2 days is not enough time. And they look at each other, and they very suddenly realize that they have run down the clock and haven't done a damn thing. That they have had the Staff of the Harvest since, like, day 3. And, if their cutoff day was, like, day 32, they would have had a chance to get, like, 7 extra harvests. Go out among the farm fields and, shake the Staff of the Harvest. Oh, it's a harvest, yay. And then they harvest, they plow, they replant. You come back a couple days later, shake it again. They didn't do that at all. So they have no extra food to feed this army. They have lost their primary quest. The Tablet of Secrets tells Arntor, you done fucked up. You had one job, feed, house, and like water, and that was kind of it. We can't do a lot about like their mental stability, but we had to have beds, we had to have places for them to stay, and food and water, and they didn't reach any of these goals. So all the time got used up with them grabbing relics and taking days to go shopping and doing their downtime, etc., leveling up, talking to people, and doing all these different things. They didn't actually make use of the Staff of the Harvest, so they have 0 extra food. And, though Arntor gave a very brave effort after the death of Tannen to go out and kind of work out his frustration and his stress by making as many small abodes as he can, even if he made 200 or 300 in a day, which is pushing it, that's housing for 600 dwarves. So it's just... They went and got the relics, sure, but they didn't use them. Yes, the goddess tier is sitting in the central cistern, so it's working. It's, they have water, they have pure water. That's great. But they don't have food, they don't have housing. They're not ready. They have failed. And so all they can really do now is damage control, which means they either need to A, go and destroy the custodians, or B, go and stop Jacob Minor. Because if one faction or the other is destroyed, this battle won't happen by the time these dwarves arrive home. But if they chase the custodians won't prey upon the army when they arrive. So I basically had to prepare for 2 games. Because, choose your way, heroes, because you can't do both. Will you chase after Lord Jacob Minor and Melody and his, 80 sellswords, armed with the crown of Sauric's authority to control the minds of men? Or will you chase after the custodians who are armed with maces of annihilation, who are completely ready to take out 50,000 dwarves as soon as they arrive home, if they survive the run-in with Lord Minor and his men and his dragon bitch. It's like, pick your poison, because both of them suck, and both of them are going to be painful. So I had to prep for 2 different games. I was like, you can only pick one. You've only got 2 days, and if you take out one faction, the other one is going to notice. So what's it going to be, guys? And I was sure that Terran, their half-elf fighter, I was sure that their leader would be like, we got to go after Lord Minor. And kind of put his foot down and be the boss and be like, and chase him down, because surely if they recovered the crown of command, Saurik's authority, they would have some sway over the army itself, or over finding out where the custodians were, but by then it would be too late. And they argued about this, and they argued, and they argued, and they argued. Even if we go after the custodians, we still have to face Milo. And, according to the Tablet of Secrets, both men, Milo and Jacob Minor, are armed with long swords of annihilation, which basically means if you get close enough, they'll just chop you in half. They don't need to roll, because weapons of annihilation, they just need to touch you, and that's it. They don't leave blood, they don't leave entrails, it just leaves a hole. Nothing survives. It's an event horizon on a hilt, so they just swing and you're dead. So both of them are bad choices. It's like, who do you want your final boss to be? Is it going to be Lord Minor and his men with his dragon, or is it going to be, Milo Beetlebeard and the custodians, the ones who have been butchering all these innocent citizens? And they argue and they nag and they complain for a very long time. And finally it comes down to a vote. And they vote in favor of chasing down the custodians. Because if Lord Minor has the crown and he lives and he leaves, he lives to fight another day, but he's still a mortal man. He can be killed. The custodians, however, are organized in such a way that they will cause the deaths of, tens of thousands of citizens as soon as they arrive. They are poised to take out, people that are missing limbs, people that are sick in the head, or traumatized, or etc., people that aren't fully functional citizens returning from battle. They'll take out God knows how many people. So that, and that's what they do. They've done it several times since we arrived, taking out the homeless, the prostitutes, the invalids, the insane, the elderly. They're very good at what they do. We have to take them out. So to save the maximum number of citizens, they decide to chase down the custodians. And, so they arm up. They put Arntor in a new suit of armor for his clerical stuff, and they get him a new golden seal so he can cast his magic. And they're putting the daggers into bandoliers, and they got all new sets of quivers and arrows, and in case we have to fight anything that flies, in case we have to fight anything that's ethereal, in case we have to fight anything with plate mail, they've got acid and alchemist fire. They're trying to get ready because they know this is it. And they also know that, if the custodians are all armed with maces of annihilation, this is going to be a kiting fight or a distance fight. So they don't want to get into melee with anybody who's got a weapon of annihilation, no matter what it happens to be. But Arntor, having learned from the Tablet of Secrets, is able to tell them exactly where their lair is, and it is on the far, far border of Lowtown. It's amongst a bunch of warehouses. There's a big mountain of crates, and one of the mounds of crates is fake, so you just push the little panel, and all the crates move to one side, and there's a way that they can go in, etc., etc. So they decide to stake the place out, because if there's 30 of these guys, 4 on 30 is not good odds. So they decide to wait and see who comes out. And as it turns out, they come out in pairs. whether they're having a meeting or whatever it happens to be, doing their culty shit. Oh, we love you, Tiamat. Here, have another body. Oh no! But they come out in pairs, a cultist and a guardian. Basically like a dwarven official and like somebody else dressed in plate mail who will defend them and walk them home. So then they wait a little while longer, and again they come out in pairs. A dwarven nobleman and another guardian dressed in plate mail with a long bow, and they're like, okay, they've got buddies that escort them home. They're like sitting back in an alleyway in the shadows watching this happen. So after a while, they're like, well, can we just like pick them off, or do we follow them home, or how do we go about this? And they follow one of the pairs home to like see who these people are, and most of them are about what you would expect. The upper crust of Anvil that think they're better than everybody else, easily swayed into darkness by getting rid of the riffraff and making Anvil stronger for it, getting rid of the leeches or the insane or the prostitutes or the homeless or, the elderly that have had their time, they can go die, etc., etc. It's that draconian philosophy that has no place in civilized society. But they follow one of these people home to try and like get some information out of him. And turns out his guard or his guardian or whatever lives next door to him. So they sneak in to this guy's house like after they think like he's asleep or something. But they don't do a very good job. And of course the guardian next door hears and comes rushing in and like throws herself through a window and does like a California swan dive roll in on them, and so it becomes cultist and plate wearing guardian versus the fighter, the rogue, the cleric, and the other cleric, and they do manage to pretty handily defeat them, like 2-on-4. Who are they kidding? And there is no Mace of Annihilation on this guy because he was not expecting to get attacked. But his guardian, who is an anti-paladin, much like Lord Minor is, though probably a lower level, puts up one hell of a fight and gives Terran and Arntor a number of bruises and beatdowns before she is finally slain and like thrown out into the alleyway where they quickly stuff her in a dumpster. But they take out both of these people and they get no information about this guy because he fights until death, and being a zealot cultist kind of guy, it basically fits. And he didn't have a diary or a journal or any kind of receipts in his study in his bedroom, so they learned basically nothing, if only that these guys bleed and they can be killed. They're not like super powered, liches or anything like that. They are just some really fucked up people. And now there's 28 of them. And they look at each other, and Terran kind of goes, well, do we just pick them off 2 by 2? Or, and Arntor and Droko kind of like stroke their dwarven beards for a while. And they're like, well, no, we really can't do that because we've got like a day and a half left, and we can't just go like cherry picking dudes all across the city. Eventually, a guard is going to run in and wonder why we're killing people or why we're throwing people out windows. I'm surprised the guards didn't hear us this time, and they kind of stick their heads out the window, and it seems that the neighborhood is quiet, so they were very lucky, and they didn't know how many dice I threw to see if the neighbors heard anything while they were battling it out in this guy's living room. But they were very lucky that there was not a city guard patrol wandering by while this battle took place, because they would have had some very interesting questions. Now, I can already hear you saying, well, gosh, T, why didn't they just go to the police or to the city guard or whatever and then take them to this cult lair? They said, well, yeah, but they're preparing for the army that's coming home. Like, all the logistics and stuff that's going on with that. The patrols are basically cut in half right now because these guys are like a day and a half away. You can see them on the horizon approaching the mountain that Anvil sits under. So, all the forces for good are working to receive their brethren, and they can't be bothered to go in after one cult that may or may not exist because they've been after them for decades and there's hardly any evidence anywhere. So, and all the evidence, of course, is with Milo Beetlebeard, who did a very interesting disappearing act, along with the Mace of Annihilation that they recovered from the one guy. So they have nothing to work with except for Arntor's word. And after that, they go back to the fort, and they're like, well, do we use the tablet again? Do we get more specific? And Terran's like, no, we this battle may or may not go in our favor. We need to destroy this. And on the other side of the DM's curtain, I'm just like, are they going to do this, really? They're going to smash the Tablet of Secrets? And again, the relics are not indestructible. You can throw them into a volcano. You can smash them. You can destroy them. They're no different than any other mortal object. But I did not expect them to go for destroying the Tablet of Secrets. It was like, this is a sacred dwarven relic that was probably handed down by like a god or some other cornerstone of the universe or the world or whatever, that this ancient thing that knows all, tells all, and then extracts a nasty price for it, that has been used by dozens of people throughout the pages of history. They're like, yeah, we're going to smash it. And I was like, and I can't say why, because, I am the voiceless narrator. I don't get a vote, and I don't have an opinion. But they basically take it to the fort, to one of the empty hallways where they were fighting the bullets, and the bodies are still laying there because they didn't get them cleaned up or anything. And they go, okay, we're going to lay the tablet on the ground, and we're going to use the Hammer of Moradin to smash it into 1,000 pieces. And I was like, all right, Arntor, give me a strength or give me an attack or whatever you want. And Arntor takes up the Hammer of Moradin, and he smashes the Tablet of Secrets into a bazillion pieces, and they can see the crackles and sparks and little lightning bolts that fly off it in different directions as the magic leaves the material, never to be recovered again. And it lays in 1,000 tiny little pieces. And like, okay, we throw it into the hole where the bullets came up out of nowhere. And then Arntor takes up the Hammer of Moradin again, and he strikes the ground, and it becomes a 10 by 10 patch of brick instead of rubble, which is what the hammer does. So now it would be almost impossible to extract the tablet's pieces and put them back together, much less re-enchant it for something that powerful. But there is no way anyone is ever going to find it ever again, much less put it back together. So the Tablet of Secrets is no more. They decided to not to hide it or spirit it away to someplace else or like lock it in a hidden dungeon like it was, but to destroy it entirely so it does not fall into anybody else's hands. They could have handed it off to the king or any like high-end force for good at the Golden Circle. But then again, Dwarf Pope turned out to be evil, so what do they know? So they destroy it, and they patch it over so it can never be found and reassembled, and again, much less re-enchanted ever again. And they go, all right, we're going to go to the lair of the custodians. And they go back to this warehouse area, and they push the little panel, and all the crates go to one side. And they're like, all right, how are we going to do this? There could be like 30 guys in there. And they're all, half of them are going to be in plate mail, and the other half are going to be in their culty robes doing their weird culty shit. And they've got the giant sphere of annihilation, and no doubt Milo Beetlebeard is going to be there, so we don't even know how to deal with him. He's a fallen paladin who freaking, on some level or another, worships Tiamat now, so he might have dark powers. They're like, no, he said the Tablet of Secrets took all of his ability to use magic. Yeah, as far as we know, he could be lying. But finally they start doing different things. They start, they open the passage goes all the way down, they throw, smoke sticks down there, see if they can't smoke them out. And a couple of people do come out, and they fight those guys, and they kill them. But after a while, the smoke sticks kind of give out, and, they've only seen, a couple of people. They're like, all right, we actually have to go down in there. And they go down these stairs, down a ramp, down the rest of the way, well below street level. beyond the sewers, not quite as deep as the Shadow Labyrinth, but still pretty far down there. And they find themselves in an antechamber. And beyond the antechamber is a pair of double doors. And as soon as they open them, they are set upon by 5 anti-paladins and a gnomish wizard. Now, if you know your anti-paladins, you know that they come with, harming spells instead of healing spells most of the time. That they come with all the powers of a paladin, but evil. They have blood magic. They have vampiric blades. They have really weird, sometimes like nasty sexual ways of healing each other. There's all kinds of dark juju going on in this room. And they turn around and they're arranged in like a V formation, like the freaking Power Rangers. And so what does this party of adventurers do? They slam the door shut again, and they wait. And so the anti-paladins on the other side also wait, and the party waits, and the anti-paladins wait, and the gnomish sorcerer prepares a spell, and the party waits, and the anti-paladins wait. I was like, I'm not fucking letting you guys cheese this fight. So they open the door. I have learned well enough that if you let this party cheese a fight, that they will do it. Like they did with the Chaos Beast, where it's a plant, it's rooted to the ground, so they stood well out of its range and just threw shit at it until it died. So they were going to use this door as a choking point, but I wasn't going to let them. So they opened the door, they shot their bows and arrows, they threw alchemist fire. Terran whipped out the long sword of blasting, Milo Beetlebeard's like war sword that would like crash with a long blast of thunder in a great like V formation, almost like Dragon's Breath. It was like a 10d10, but it could only be used a couple of times. He used the sword of blasting to hit all these guys, and they are rocked from head to toe with thunder and lightning damage. But when their turn comes around, what do? They pull up their shields like they were doing, and each paladin touches another paladin on the shoulder, and they all heal each other for a whole bunch. And the party kind of looks at each other and they go, shit. So they throw more alchemist fire, and they're shooting their crossbows, and they're lobbing other weird shit and what few spells they've got that are offensive. And the paladins are in a defensive stance, so they take less damage. They're lined up like a phalanx, or whatever, where their shields are close together, so they're shielding not only themselves, but each other, which implies that they had levels of knight among them, not just anti-paladin, but I digress. They were standing in such a way that they were protecting each other, and there were enough of them that they were taking less and less damage over time. So the party would throw a bunch of shit, and the paladins would grab each other on the shoulders and heal. And then the party would throw a bunch of shit, and the anti-paladins would touch each other on the shoulder and heal. They're like, this is going fucking nowhere. And eventually, of course, the gnome sorcerer, like, climbs up the back of the cape of one of the anti-paladins and just, like, throws a fireball. Bam! Straight through the door, straight into the party. It explodes in the tiny antechamber, throwing them all against the wall. And, like, finally Terran just kind of loses his damn mind and charges straight into these guys. Like, all right, they're not following us out. We're going in. They're like, Terran, no, fuck, come on, guys, ah! And so it's, 6-on-4 anti-paladins and their sorcerer, plus the party, or what's left of it, as they charge in to do battle with these guys, and they fight. And they fight, and they fight, and they fight. And, plate wearers that can use magic and heal and swing long swords with vampiric touch to constantly heal themselves. It was a harsh throwdown. Like, this was like the final boss fight team, the Psycho Rangers, the evil Justice League, whatever you want to call that. These guys were military trained, heavily armored. They could heal, they could take a hit, they could dish the hit, and suck health out of you whenever their swords hit you. They drank in the blood, and it became their vitality, etc., etc. And the battle was long and harsh, but in all eventuality, our party did emerge victorious, and even the gnome sorcerer was lain as a splatting ketchup mark on the wall. And our party stood victorious. And they look around and are like, my God, that was just the guys at the front door. There were only 6 of them. And, yeah, we saw 2. So we killed 2 plus 6. That's 8. So there's like 22 of them left, I guess. And so they're counting numbers. It's like as though they're all going to be home, which they're not. But they're counting numbers because the Tablet of Secrets told them that the custodians only have 30 members. So Milo Beetlebeard and 29 other assholes that are killing people. But we've killed 8 or 9 of them, so that's pretty good. We got like a third of them, and this is just the first or second room. So, they pass out the potions, they pass out the healing spells. It's like that was one group. Like they were waiting for us. It's like probably because Milo told them that we were coming and sent them to their doom. So he probably convinced them that 5 anti-paladins and a sorcerer was enough, even though they weren't. So Milo is feeding them to us piecemeal so that we can destroy them. We are playing into his hands. And I'm like, fuck. So as they're pushing open the next set of double doors, they're just hating Milo more and more and more. And yeah, the benefactor betraying you trope is certainly there, but Milo's ready to jump on his sword anyway, because the custodians have served their purpose. But it's not likely that he could dismantle the custodians before the army arrives home. So he is literally using the party to destroy his own cult in the interest of saving Anvil, because that's what the whole thing's been about. Ever since Milo Beetlebeard set foot on the battlefield 100 years ago, with Saurik the First beside him and Saurik the Second bringing up the rear. And he must have had the Tablet of Secrets on the battlefield or like out in the field in case of emergency. The one artifact that didn't get sealed away immediately was probably used for tactical information. But when Milo was alone with the Tablet of Secrets, he asked it how to win the war and save Anvil. And winning the war is one question, and saving Anvil is another. But the tablet construed it as, Saurik the First must die, Saurik the Second must die. Anybody who's not directly contributing to Anvil's prosperity must die in order to get ready for this army that's coming home. So the Tablet of Secrets is a little bit, it has no moral compass. This is what has to happen for the city to continue to flourish. You need to kill this many people, and Saurik the Third needs to be on the throne. Those were like the main things. So Milo's story is coming to a rapid close as our adventurers close in on him. So they throw open the double doors, and they come to the Eye of Tiamat, the sphere of annihilation the size of a house, and they can feel it almost like pulling on them just a little bit, like a strong magnet. They see as they push the doors open, the doors kind of stay open and kind of waggle while the sphere pulls on it, and they see like a pebble roll past them. It's not strong enough to like pull them in like an actual black hole, but they can feel it pulling on them. And so they walk around it, around the border of the room, staying as far away from it as they can. And they see one room that looks like it could be an armory where they keep all of their nasty, nasty cult weapons. And they find a chemical room where they've got vials of the heart rot, ripe for pouring in some water supply, some food kitchen somewhere. And then finally, they find an ornate set of doors beset by black jewels and silver filigree. And they look at each other and like, yeah, there's got to be like a save point next to this door because this is about as final as it gets. But as they push the doors open, they hear a dragon's roar outside. Like it echoed all the fucking way down the tunnel, followed by the sound of an explosion, followed by another dragon's roar, followed by another set of explosions. And they look at each other and they go, Lord Minor's making his move. So whoever's not home, whoever's not here at the culty lair is probably being beset upon right now. Like he brought like 80 guys with him. If he split them off into groups of 5 or 6 to carry out assassinations all over the city, I wouldn't be surprised if he set off fire bombs as like, or powder kegs or whatever to serve as distractions, much less setting his dragon out over like the populace to scare people and make them hide while he's performing 20 or 30 assassinations, because no doubt, using the impulse power of the Crown of Command, he made somebody talk, somebody that knew a lot of names, and now Lord Minor is making his move. So choose, adventurers. Will you chase down Lord Minor and his dragon, or will you continue here and perhaps destroy the cult from within? And they choose to go, we've come this far, we must go forward. And, whatever chaos Lord Minor is causing, it will probably be over by the time we return to street level. But, we have chosen this path, we must stay on it. And so they square their shoulders and they pull their war hammers and their swords. And, Adrian's got his longbow and then switches out, her longbow, and switches out for the magic sword that she stole from her father. And they're like limbering up their shoulders like they don't know what's going to be in this last room. They throw open the doors, and there before them is a long, bejeweled hallway with prayer mats and kneeling cushions before a gigantic statue of Tiamat, which has great big rubies for eyes on all 5 of the heads that the cult of the custodians of Tiamat is more worshipful towards the red head, the ones that die according to murder, according to violence, etc., etc., that they worship one head and not the other 4. And who should be standing at like a priest at the pulpit is Milo Beetlebeard. And he goes, there you are. I've been waiting for you. And he steps out from behind the pulpit and he walks down the stairs and he's like, my friends, you've done so well. You've done everything I hoped you would and more. And they're like, oh, you motherfucker. We ought to send a fucking hammer through his face. No, we gotta capture him alive so he can face justice. No, he's the leader of a fucking Tiamat cult. We gotta take him out. He's Dwarf Pope. They might not believe us if we bring him into jail. And they start arguing with each other. And Milo is just all smiles. Like, this is his moment of triumph, whether they kill him or not. The custodians have performed beautifully. Lord Minor is going to take them out. The party's going to take them out. Anvil is at least somewhat prepared to receive the army. The war has been won. The dwarves are getting more territory than the elves or the kingdom of man. According to everything the Tablet of Secrets has told Milo all those years ago, everything is going his way. So even if he dies, he wins. And this is the kind of weird final encounter that got set up. So it's almost like the Wizard of Oz when they go into to see the great and powerful Oz. It's just this one path that leads up to him, and there's columns and there's walks that are giving off incense and smoke and big ever-burning torches in every corner on every column. He's like, you did great. Well, you didn't do great. You didn't actually get anything with the Staff of the Harvest, but I'm sure they'll make it work. You recovered all the dwarven relics except for the crown, but hey, 4 out of 5 isn't bad. The custodians are being destroyed. They're going to have heroes, you guys to look up to when the chaos and anarchy of, 250,000 people coming home really hits the city. and I will certainly serve as a great scapegoat, the secret puppet master behind the whole thing. That's all you have to say. Milo Beetlebeard was the one behind the custodians, and we destroyed him and made the city a safer place. Oh, by the way, here's all these relics that purify water and create infinite food and create, infinite homing. And they go, shut up! They have played right into Milo's hands. And as they're arguing back and forth, Milo reaches under his dwarf pope robes like a Sith Lord reaching for his lightsaber. And he pulls it out and he activates the hilt, and this long, like ebony black blade jumps into existence, and it crackles with red and black sparks and jumps of lightning. And he swings it about a little bit to make sure it's working properly and that it looks dangerous enough. And it's like, yes, the tablet had already told Arntor that Milo Beetlebeard had a long sword of annihilation. So if he touches them, they will die. It doesn't matter if he rolls a 1 or not. It's just like, and they would get sucked in like a black hole and cease to exist. And Milo's like, all you have to do is kill me, and the story ends. That's it. I'm the bad guy, remember? Aren't you angry? And he starts walking towards them. It's like, this guy has gone off the fucking deep end. His plan has come completely to fruition, don't get me wrong. So he has every right to be happy, and he's ready to die. But that doesn't keep the players, the party members, from being pissed that they have done all this for all the right reasons, for all the wrong reasons. So they start walking backwards while Milo is walking forwards. Like, don't make us do this, Milo, come on. And Milo's kind of just like casually slices the carpet, the stone floor, with the long sword of annihilation. He's like, don't worry, I had this planned out from the very start. All those people, they had to die. Veterans that defend their country, they're better than senile old men. They're better than the insane, the homeless, the leeches of society. It's fine. Nobody will miss them. They didn't have families. They didn't contribute in any way. I emptied out the hospital. I emptied out the asylum. I emptied out the old folks' home. All these places that are going to have a whole bunch of people in them after this army arrives anyway. Take your best shot. And of course, Adrian and Taryn both have their longbows, and they try to aim for his arm so that he'll drop the long sword of annihilation, but not so much. And Arntor and Drogo do not want to go within melee range of this guy because he might just be playing around, but he also might chop one of them in half to prove a point. So they basically just kind of slowly pincushion Milo Beetlebeard with arrows. And again, Milo Beetlebeard was a retired fallen paladin, 280 years old, and dwarves in this setting only live to be like 300. So he didn't have a lot of health to begin with. And in all eventuality, they slew him from afar with arrows, and he just kind of smiled as the blood kind of drips out of his mouth and into his beard. And he's like, I won. Blah. And he falls onto his face. And the long sword of annihilation skitters into darkness, and they leave it there. And the party kind of looks at each other like, what have we done? What puppetry have we all been a victim of? And they look at each other, and they go back outside. They're like, oh shit, this battle is probably still going on. And they rush outside, leaving Milo to lay in a pool of his own blood. And they rush outside, and they see that Melody flies the skies, or the caverns, rather. It's an underground city. Melody flies the caverns of Anvil, blowing up towers and roaring and flapping her wings about, while the city guard uselessly shoots up at her because, my god, what do you have that you can throw up there to knock a dragon out of the sky? Nothing. while, the civilians are running and screaming in terror. Meanwhile, Lord Minor's men are, leaping from rooftop to rooftop. Okay, this is the one. And then they jump into a window, and you hear, stab, 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 stab. Mission accomplished. And then they run over to another windowsill and they throw the grappling hook and they climb the next building and they check their list of addresses and they run along to do some more assassinating because Lord Minor has given them a list of 30 men or 30 people that need to die because they're members of the custodians. And should anyone get in their way, they are bound to die as well. And the party just kind of stands there like, what has happened? This has spiraled way the fuck out of control. So they rush to save the citizenry as best they can, to shuffle them towards the palace, the seat of power, where all the barracks are, where all the soldiers are that can protect them. But by the end of the day, by the end of this whole kerfuffle of fuckery that has gone on, the custodians were destroyed, along with Milo Beetlebeard. Lord Minor, with the crown of Sauric's authority, withdrew his forces after the remaining custodians were destroyed and made for, pretty much ran for the hills. They grabbed up all their carts and their horses and then what supplies they were going to use to travel with, and they beat it out of town in the middle of the confusion. And of course the scary blue dragon mysteriously disappeared between buildings. And, a maid dressed in a skimpy French maid outfit, emerged from another shadowy area, patting down the smoke and the ash from her sleeves before she joined her lord, and they left to go back from whence they came. And Lord Minor and his forces exited Anvil with relatively light casualties, meanwhile leaving Anvil to burn in their wake. Did our party chase them down? No. Their mission was to Anvil. They had all the dwarven relics, save for the crown, which was leaving. The custodians were destroyed. Milo Beetlebeard was dead. And the army was arriving tomorrow. And it's like, well, we should get some rest while we can. And, of course, the morning comes. And there's not a lot that they can do. Because, again, much as the Tablet of Secrets told Arntor, they didn't use the Staff of the Harvest at all. They didn't use the Hammer of Morden but one day out of the 32. So they gathered up the relics, they went and got the things, but they didn't use the things, except for the Tear of the Goddess, which was purifying water, but hey, great. So they had medical supplies and fresh water, but no lodging and no food. So it only took a matter of days for Anvil to fall into absolute anarchy with street crime, with people desperate for food, desperate for a place to stay, desperate for anything and everything they could do to survive. And Anvil basically burst into flames, into rubble, because all these people arrived at all the same time, and even the mighty King Sauric III and his forces were not enough to keep the peace. And so Anvil descended into chaos, and our adventurers quickly gathered their things and skipped town. They went out beyond the mountain and stood to watch the smokestack as it began to emerge from all the different vents into the city. And, Taryn kind of looks at everybody else and goes, we failed. We failed pretty badly. And they kind of look over at me, and I was like, I even started making fun of you guys because you weren't using the Staff of the Harvest. I reminded you 4 times to make sure you were carving out enough food, enough resources to, start making hovels and things. I reminded you and reminded you and reminded you, and you didn't fucking do it. So you failed, quest failed, no continues, no extra lives. You had 32 days to recover and use these relics, and all you did was gather them up. So Anvil went from being the seat of power of the Dwarven Empire to being, a hive of scum and villainy that would never recover. So everything north of the bridge of Theon, where the edge of the Dwarven Kingdom is, everything north of there, that entire mountain range, basically became like the Wild West. There is no king, there is no army, there is only a vast citizenry, a desperate population, hungry for food, hungry for a place to stay, hungry for, the life of peace that they earned fighting this war. And they would spread out through the mountains, scavenging and fighting amongst themselves because Anvil wasn't ready. And it's all their fault. The end. I always try to tell my players, the world will spin as it will, and I will do my best to give you a realistic scenario, so it is possible for you to fail. I don't carry the story in such a way that no matter what you do or don't do, there's always a good ending. No, I gave you one job and you didn't do it. Now everyone is fucked. So, they got the bad ending. Now, had they gone out with the staff of the harvest and, shake the stick over the plants and got a couple of extra harvests in, maybe they could have done it. Or if Arntor had taken the Hammer of Moradin and, once a week or twice a week gone out to make, small 10 by 10 hovels. You're not going to make enough space for 250,000 guys, but it would have put a serious dent in, the ultimate, homeless population that basically busted in on them. Because 250,000 guys arriving in a city like that, they chewed up what food there was and stayed in what lodging there was, and then they started going at each other's throats because they were not ready. So that was the end of Anvil and the Dwarven Empire northwest of Ocean Rim across the bridge of Theon. So I guess if there's any lesson to be learned here is if you have a quest, make sure you've always got it on your mind that you're making sure to contribute towards the goal that you actually have and not just coasting along, because your GM might just let you fail. So, again, my philosophy is I am the voiceless narrator. I don't have an opinion and I don't have a vote. So if somebody gives you a mission and you only do half the mission, half isn't good enough. So the Dwarven Kingdom of Anvil, the Mountains of Anvil, whatever you want to call it, it's the Wild West now. There's no city, there's no king, there's no army, there's just the desperation, the scavenging, etc., etc. They won the war, but didn't exactly win the war. I guess that's how you would put it. But that is the end of that particular campaign, and I guess that is the end of that particular D&D story. So until next time, keep gaming.
Hi guys, T here. Remember to hit that like button for me on your way out. If you'd like to see artwork and maps from my gaming table, check out the D&D Stories Facebook page. Also, I have a Patreon if you'd like to toss a few gold pieces into your humble bard's hat. Links in the description below. Keep gaming!